Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this series of talks promoted by the United Spiritist Federation. Every Saturday morning, we meet at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today, I'm so very happy to be here today to host this talk by our very, very special guest, JUSSARA KORNGOLD. And JUSSARA will be discussing communications of the Spirit Allan Kardec. Before we turn it over to JUSSARA, please allow me to do a very small opening prayer. So let's prepare ourselves to listen to JUSSARA. And with that, I invite all of us to close our eyes. Let's open our hearts, our minds, in closeness to all the spirits of light who are here today with us. And along with all our benefactors, those who guide us during our journey on this life, I ask that all of us be blessed. May our dear, dear friend JUSSARA receive inspiration during this talk, and that we all are touched by her wisdom. So be it. JUSSARA, welcome. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, hello everyone. So good to be here again. It's wonderful that we are being able to do and to promote this series of talks, and we have been doing that for the past 4 months or so, and we are having a lot of good feedback, and and especially today, it's quite special to be here and talking to you.
Yes, so before we start, and I would like to formally introduce JUSSARA with her bio, but I wanted to say, indeed, today is a very, very special day, right? Today marks 216 years of the birth of Allan Kardec. And for those who do not know, we're going to speak about him today, but he's the French author and founder of Spiritism. So let's go ahead and get started. And JUSSARA, I'm so pleased to have you here with your words of wisdom, your teachings to all of us. And let me please introduce you a little bit more formally. So everyone, JUSSARA KORNGOLD is the General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council. In addition to this leadership position, she is also the President of the United States Spiritist Federation and the executive director of the Tri-State Spiritist Federation. She is also the founder and president of both the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. And Ms. KORNGOLD is fluent, I'm very happy to say, in Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish. She's also a published author and translator, and has a bachelor's in economics and a postgraduate degree in finance. JUSSARA works for Brazil Child Health as its main executive, and is also an executive board member of the Grupo Mulheres do Brasil in New York. I would like to remind everyone to please send your questions. We have allowed a bit of time at the end for JUSSARA to answer any questions once she concludes her presentation. Now, JUSSARA, it's all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcia. So again, formally, I would like to greet you all. Good morning, everyone that is connecting with us today. Like Marcia said, it's a very special day for all spiritists around the world. We have so many events happening, so many celebrations. This because we will be talking about a person that is very important for all of us, because he is the one that has put all of this together. Just as a quick reminder for all those who are not familiar with Allan Kardec, he was born Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail on October 3rd, 1804. And at about the age 55, he was introduced to the phenomena that was happening and taking over the world, and in Europe especially, besides here, the US, which was the phenomenon of turning tables. And after being invited several times to attend one of those seances, sessions, he finally decided to accept, because the invitation came from a friend that he had in high regards. But as soon as he got there and he started observing the phenomena, he realized that this was not a simple, phenomena to just entertain people, that there was something much more serious happening about it, which was the communication of minds that at that point he started researching, and came to the conclusion that it could only be the minds of those that have departed. So he embraced this whole idea, and it started because he was a very inquisitive person. He was a scholar. He at that point belonged to the Science Academy of France, and he was a man that would very intellectual, that spoke several languages as well, and he wanted to understand what was going on. It was not that he was going there and see the table answering questions with such a reason that he would see or so to say would feel comfortable with just this kind of explanation. So he was given like 50 journals and notebooks that people were taking notes during the seances to research, and with continuing participating in the seances, he started changing the objective of the seances that were first only for trivial things, and it started switching that to more enlightening, for a more enlightening purpose. And when he started sending questions not only to the seance that he participated, but to all others that he knew were happening not only in France, but in many other countries. So this is why and how Kardec came with the codification, a work that we value very much, because it encompasses so many subjects that can enlighten us as to our purpose here on earth. And so it's very, very important for us to understand all of that. And so today, as a way of us showing him our gratitude as well, we decided to talk about him, about his accomplishment, and about his thoughts. He was a very, very tender person. Sometimes people think that he was just that scholar, but no, from all the writings, everything that we read, and the testimonies that we have about himself, and even from some lectures he gave, we can see how Allan Kardec truly is. And in order to make this interesting, and we don't talk that much about the communications of the spirit of Allan Kardec. As we know, he passed away on March 31st, 1869. He had an aneurysm, an AVC, and immediately died. And there are some of the communications that he gave to us on the same year that he died. If you want to question me, what about other communications? Do we have more communications about Allan Kardec? We have a few. From I think the very beginning of the 20th century, but after that we don't have that much. But I have to tell you that in my point of view, I'm sure he is closely following the whole Spiritist movement. It couldn't be otherwise, and even giving communications, but perhaps just because of not making too much problem in relation to the signatures. Probably he's not even signing, or signing with a different name, because as an immortal spirit, of course, he has other names as well. So today we are going to start showing a communication that he gave right after his passing, in the same month that he has passed, which is very important for us as spiritists as well, because sometimes we have this idea that a spirit cannot communicate right after, or a couple days or a few days after its passing. In general, it can be like that, especially if our passing represents something that can be much more traumatic. But of course, when we are talking about more enlightened spirits, and when I say enlightened, I'm not just saying from a very high category, like for sure Kardec was, but that has a bit more understanding and knowledge of the afterlife. It can be something that can occur as well. So this is the first communication that he gave to the Society of Paris, April 1869. So remember that he died March 31st of 1869. And then he starts by saying, "How to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your good feelings and the truths expressed so eloquently over my remains. You may not doubt it. I was present and deeply happy, moved by the communion of thought that united us by heart and spirit." So this is very reassuring, because not only he's saying that he was present at his funeral, but he was very happy and moved with all that was said in regards to him. It's interesting, because also in the codification we learned that when we are born, we do not witness our birth, but when we die, many of us are able to witness our passing and the funerals and everything that comes after. So this is why we always emphasize the need to have a deep respect for those that have departed, always elevating our hearts in prayers or in gratitude, and the true and sincere desire that they can be well, and that they can feel our love towards them. So here we have the codificator Allan Kardec saying, "I was present and I was so touched and moved by everything that you said, to see everyone gathering together and in terms of being connected to him, and to show their presence at such an important hour." And then he says, "As a man, I'm very happy for the good memories and the testimonies of sympathy that you offered me. As a spiritist, I congratulate you for the decisions you have taken to ensure the doctrine's future. Because if spiritism is not my work, at least I gave all the human strength I had to it." So you see, here he makes a distinction, because besides anything else, the role that we fulfill in life, we are spirits, we are an individual. And then he comes and say, "As a man, I'm so happy for all the good memories, for everything that we went through together, for all that has been offered me, for each and every moment that I could breathe on this earth." But he's more concerned at this point, and he's calling our attention to the fact that as a spiritist, he's very pleased to see that people were taking over, that were concerned about the continuity of his work, which is something that as a spiritist ourselves, we always have to think about it. And please pay attention, because some of you may say, "Oh, What is the point of being analyzing a message that Kardec sent on 1869? But every word that Kardec gives to us comes from a superior mind, a superior spirit that can be addressed to us today. Like, for instance, how many of us are really engaged, not necessarily just in spiritism, but any other cause that we may be engaged. And there is always this question about the continuation, especially, if we are talking about very good, laudable causes. What is going to happen next? So that's the reason why, especially us spiritists that knows about immortality, that knows that the work it does not belong to us, but it belongs to to Jesus, to God. We have to be sure that we are going to be making everything at our disposal to strive for the continuation of these purposes that we are engaged with. In this case, we are talking about spiritism. So here he says, that would be, of course, one of the main concerns that as a spiritist he would have. What is going to happen after? Who is going to be taking care of it? And how are they going to be dealing with that? And we can ask the same questions today. What is happening in my household? Spiritual values only exist because of me? Am I trying to impact the lives of my loved ones in a way that even if I'm not here, they can continue in this path, in this journey of spiritual betterment? If we are talking about a spiritist center, what am I doing to assure that it's going to be continuing in the right way, following the right minds and the right directions that we have received from the codification? So this is all things that we have to keep in mind. So he continues by saying, it is as an energetic and confident collaborator, as champion during all times of the great doctrine of this century, that I love it, and I would feel unhappy if I saw it perish, if this was possible. So here he is emphasizing how much he has given for the spiritism, for this set of knowledge to come about and to be able to help all of us. How much he gave of his life, of his time, of his sacrifice, just because deep inside he knew the value of it. And of course, now communicating from the other side of life, he would say that he would feel very unhappy if he would see that destroyed, just because no one would take the reins and continue doing the work that had to do. But at the same time, he said, as if this was possible, because he was so sure that this is something that comes from the high levels of creation, of life, that it's not possible to put an obstacle to progress forever. We may delay progress, but we cannot halt progress. So this is what he was kind of saying to us, listen, and this applies to today. You may not do everything that you will do. You may not fulfill your commitments, but it is going to move on with you or without you. And we have to think about it. Which side do we want to be? So he goes on and say, it is not enough to want today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. To be worthy of spiritism, we must always want it. The will that acts by spasms is no longer will. It is whim and the good. But when the will is practiced with undisturbed calmness, with unstoppable perseverance, it is the true unwavering will in action and bringing fruitful results. So this again, it's something that is totally related to us. You know, one day we say, oh, spiritism is the best thing that is. Oh, these teachings, everything is so perfect. It fits so well in my life. And then life shakes us, come and presents a challenge, and we start doubting ourselves. We start doubting the validity of everything that we studied. We lose the will, the motivation to keep on going. And this is what Kardec is saying, whether you are or you're not, or at least you're really trying your best to become. But you cannot be one thing with all, on one side with all conviction one day and the following day, I'm not so sure. And then, well, yeah, maybe that could be, the best option. No, it is important for us to persevere, understanding that, of course, we will have our let's say our doubts when life becomes too hard, but it doesn't mean that we will give up our ideals. So it is important in terms to be worthy, like Kardec says, he's of spiritism. We must always want it, even if we have to admit to ourselves, I know this is the right thing, I want it, but I'm still not capable of doing what I should be doing on behalf of spiritist values. But then he says, trust your strength. They may produce great things if used wisely. Trust the power of the idea that unites you because it is indestructible. One can activate or delay its development, but it is impossible to stop it, like what we were commenting before. First of all, to trust us, to trust that we have much more strength than we can imagine. I mean, so many things have happened to us already, and we are here. We're still here. We overcome all these difficulties, and we keep on going. So he says, trust the power. We know that the good spirits are surrounding us, that they are here to help us. We just have to allow the connection to happen. And it cannot be destroyed. It's the law of the creation itself that we are talking about here. So it is impossible to stop it, but we can delay its march, not only on ourselves, but depending on what we represent on behalf of Spiritism, we can even delay inside of the Spiritist movement. So he says, be tolerant towards others. Act mainly through charity, love, and affection. Oh, if only you knew all the power that this lever encompasses. Now he's talking about charity, love, and affection, and being tolerant. So this is where we see the loving affection that Kardec has for all of us. Remember, making us thinking about that we are still imperfect spirits, and therefore we will see the failures of others. We will see the problems that will appear, the different opinions that may arise, but always putting charity, love, and affection, that this can change everything. Even when we disagree with each other, we can disagree with respect, with the sincere desire to come to terms, to try to understand why the other has a different opinion, or why I have this opinion, and how can we perhaps converge, or at least work side by side without creating even more trouble or division. Then he says, upon the light of freedom and human charity, all human beings recognizing each other will say, we are brothers and sisters, and they will only have in their hearts a single love, in their mouths a single word, in their lips a single whisper, God. So all of this, and this is the aim of Spiritism, is to lead us to God. It would be so much simpler if we just had this faith that we still don't have it, that we still are trying to nourish within ourselves. And in this sense, Spiritism is such a powerful tool that we have to help us in this process of having faith, of understanding that God is above all, and that we are all here due to his love and mercy. And in this way, there would be just words of gratitude for our life, for our presence in the world, for our presence in the creation. And then we would really be showing our deep love and respect for the Creator. And these are the last words that Kardec sent in this first message that he gave right after this communication. But we have another one that we wanted to share with you. Is a message that he gave also to the Society, Spiritist Society of Paris on April 3rd, 1869, a communication also like a communication that was published at the Spiritist Review in June 1869. So he comes and tells us, I come tonight, my friends, to talk to you briefly. In the last session, I did not come because I was busy elsewhere. Our works as spirits are much more extensive than you can suppose, and we are not always available. I think it's so great when Kardec says about this, because, you know, he puts down completely the idea that, you know, more evolved spirits are just going to be, you know, doing nothing in a life of idleness in the afterlife, you know, playing harp or God knows what else, right? He comes and says, I wanted to be with you at the last session, but I couldn't because there was so much work to be done and I could not make myself available to be here. Isn't that fantastic when we hear about it? And listen, we are talking about the Spiritist Society that he has founded with everyone that he had a deep love and affection, and also concerned with the future of Spiritism and etc. But even then, he had to attend more pressing demands. And he's not even afraid to say that. So he says it's another way that he can find to teach us a lesson. And I always like to remind, you know, because sometimes when we talk about mediumship and the possibility of talking to people, and I mean, and sometimes there is this idea that just because you are a medium, you can talk to spirits at will. And we remember that Chico Xavier used to say, you know, the phone, it doesn't ring from here to there, but it's from there to here. And when we are talking about high level spirits, they are very busy. They do not have, you know, all the time to be next to us. And especially if we are not concerned with more enlightening ideas. If we are just doing mediumistic meetings for trivial purposes, high-level spirits will not attend. Even when this is the case here that Kardec was saying, he's talking about the society, Spiritist Society that he has founded right after, you know, a month after his discarnation, and you know, certainly worried about all the future and all the decisions about Spiritism, the continuity of the work on Spiritism, but still he could not attend. So it's very important for us to think about, to ponder about it. But then he comes and says, I still have some advice to give you on the path you must follow before the public in order to make the work I have devoted my life to advance. A work whose improvement I follow from the spiritual plane. It couldn't be otherwise. I mean, this work that he was the spirit that materialized that on earth, because we know that there was this group of the spirits under the banner of the Spirit of Truth that we do understand as being Jesus, working for the propagation of, a new set of knowledge in order to free us, to help us in this process of learning more about ourselves, about our immortality, about everything that we can pursue, achieve here on this earth, and make our life, not only the present life, but, the life as eternal life, much better than it is. So he says that he follows us. He is still from the spiritual plane, helping, and he still had some advice to give. What I mainly recommend to you is tolerance, affection, sympathy toward each other and toward unbelievers. We can even imagine, the whole picture after the death of Kardec, and actually we don't need just to imagine. There are documents that show that, in terms of who was going to continue the work and the Spiritist Society, the work of the Spiritist review that he has put together, and all of that. And as we can imagine, because as human beings, not as evolved as Allan Kardec, there were being dissensions, lack of tolerance, and people discussing with each other, all of this that Kardec wanted to prevent. So he doesn't come and point fingers, but he says, in general terms, tolerance, affection, sympathy, not only between yourselves, but the unbelievers. And I mean, if we have unbelievers today, 200 years later, or almost 200 years, 164 years later, imagine at the time when the Spiritist doctrine was actually being was very new in Europe and other countries. When you see a blind person on the street, the first feeling you experience is compassion. Likewise, you should feel the same towards our brothers and sisters whose eyes are veiled by the darkness of ignorance or disbelief. Pity them instead of criticizing them. Show that there is in you a higher principle and an obedient soul to a law and to a higher truth is Spiritism. Again, that was one of the things that Kardec practiced during his time that should be a very valuable teaching to all of us. He didn't engage in discussions, in trying to convince others, criticizing others. He knew that people needed time to grow those ideas, to grow in terms of their understanding. And so this is what he's talking about here, tolerance. And nowadays, we understand even more that as spirits, we being created the same, simple and ignorant, but we all go marching on, going through our progress, but in different pace, at a different pace. And we have to respect others that is still are not mature enough to embrace more spiritual values. And this is what Kardec is telling us here. And he says, brochures, newspapers, books, publications of all kinds are powerful means of introducing the light everywhere. But the safest, the most intimate, and the most accessible to all is the example in charity, sweetness, and love. So that's very important when we think about it. Because sometimes we rush so much, we want just to, we have to disseminate it. We have to do this and do that. But if it doesn't come from the heart, if it doesn't come from within, like he's saying, the charity here, the loving action, that will transpire in kindness that we will show to others, in love that we will give to others. Those are going to be empty words. They are not going to be the ones that are going to impact us or impact people to the point that they will feel the need to have more of this that comes with all this energy of giving, of loving. So that's when he says, my brothers and sisters, how would I feel happy to see that my efforts were not in vain and that God has blessed our work. But this is only going to happen if we give more than just our intellectual possibilities. Yeah, we know Spiritism is the doctrine of reason. We cannot accept blind faith. But at the end of the day, when we have all this knowledge, if this knowledge doesn't allow us to help in terms of appeasing the pain of others and even our own pains, what is the purpose of all that? And this is what we learn even from the teachings of Jesus. Love one another. And when he talks about that on a message that we have on the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 6, when he says love and instruction, the two wings of evolvement, as the Spiritual Manual proposes to us. When all people understand what the words love and charity encompass, there will no longer be on earth soldiers and enemies. There will only be brothers and sisters. There will no longer be angry and aggressive looks. There will only be heads inclined to God. Allan Kardec. So this is the purpose of Spiritism, to help us achieve all these virtues that are still not part of ourselves. And we have the tools, we have the understanding. Now it's just a matter of practicing it. Let me see here, just 1 second. Okay, now we have a very important message that was given on October 4th, 1869, in the house of Miss Anna Blackwell, and also a communication published in the Spiritist Review in November 1869. So let's explain things here. So it's a message that is called Spiritism and Spiritualism. As some of you may know, Spiritism is a doctrine that comes from spiritualism. That's why Kardec shows in the Spirit's book that Spiritism is also a spiritualistic doctrine. Spiritualism, as we understand with the Fox sisters, were something that started here in the US, and it was very, very much developed on the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, to the point that there are numbers that talks about even 6 million people at the time that were following spiritualism. And the main difference that we have among Spiritism and spiritualism is because spiritualism at the time did not accept reincarnation. And on the Spiritist review that we already have published in English, there is an article that talks about American spiritualism, American Spiritism, and why reincarnation is not part of the American spiritualism. And it's an excellent article, and I do recommend you to read. I don't remember quite well if it's in the 1858 or 1859, but I have a surprise for you at the end of this presentation, so you will find it easily. And so there was this group of people that would be, let's say, the English speaker is speaking the Anglo-Saxon side of spiritualism, Spiritism, and the French Latin side of Spiritism. The difference being this reincarnation. And for those who do not know, Miss Anne Blackwell was the person that has translated 4 of the works of Allan Kardec, and for many, many decades, it was due to her books that the English-speaking people could have some access to the work of codification. The only one that she did not translate was Genesis. Of course, this book, with time, they disappeared. It was not easy for anyone to find it. And that's why we had it translated again. And how we have it even published today also by the United States Spiritist Federation. But this is the woman that has put so much effort to bring about Spiritism. And here is a communication of Kardec in her house. She was being the medium, receiving this communication from Kardec. And this communication is for a very important guest that she was having at that time. That was Mr. Peeble. He was a very renowned spiritualist here in the U.S. He participated in various organizations, spiritualist organizations at the time, and was a writer for many of the journals that we had, the publications that we had at the time. So he was a very respected man in this field. So Kardec starts by saying, "For quite some time I have heartily desired the establishment of a regular relationship between the French school and the American one. In order for us to understand one another, it would be sufficient to meet and exchange ideas." That's so fantastic, right? I mean, that's what happened many times. We say, "Oh, I love this phrase that once I read it from Abraham Lincoln." He said, "I don't like this person. I need to get to know this person better." Many times we have those divergences because we don't talk to each other. We don't try to understand each other. We don't try, this kind of approach. And here Kardec is saying exactly that. I mean, it's enough for us to talk about, for us to put aside any misunderstanding, any divergences we can have. And then he continues, "I have always considered your hall, dear lady, as a bridge launched between Europe and America, between France and England, destined to suppress the divergences that separate us, and to establish a chain of common ideas from which a union would result in the future." So here, again, he's saying, I do understand that there are some points that we do not agree, but there are so many that we do agree, and we are not talking to each other, and we are being, against sometimes to each other just because there is one single point or a few things that we do not agree upon. So it should be no reason for us not to be communicating and collaborating together in this path of spirituality. Dear Mr. Peebles, that's the man we were talking about. Allow me to greet you for your sincere desire to communicate with us. We should not be concerned if we are spiritists or spiritualists. We truly are individuals and spirits that conscientiously search the truth and that will acknowledge it with recognition, whether it is a result of French or American studies. Now he's addressing himself to this very well-known and respected spiritualist from America that was at that point visiting London, and together with Anne Blackwell. And here you see that Kardec was responding to his desire to communicate with him. It's intriguing, right? He didn't say, oh, I just came here because I saw that you were here. No, he said, I'm replying to your sincere desire to communicate with me. And to understand that the labels that we give to each other, they mean nothing if we are not working on the side of truth. And it doesn't matter what nationality we are, or which nationality is going to find the truth. The truth is going to serve the whole humankind. And then he continues, his spirits conserve in the space. When he says the space, we translate it as it is in the original, but it's the spiritual realm. They are sympathies in their earthly habits. They conserve there. The spirits of the seated Americans remain Americans, as the discarnates that lived in France remain French in the spirit world. From this results the difference of education in some centers. Each group of spirits, due to its proper nature, its nationality, makes its instructions suitable to the character, the special genius of those to whom it addresses itself. So he's showing here that at this point of understanding, even when we are talking about spiritual matters, we are talking about commonalities as well. We are talking about the customs that the habits that we have as a people, and the understanding that we have as a people. So the spirits that will be communicating here, having had this kind of understanding, they will continue giving this kind of understanding, knowing the reason why they will be continuing with that, as well as we would see in other countries. So he says, but in the same manner that on earth, the barriers that separate the nationalities tend to disappear, in the space, the distinctive characters disappear. The nuances mix with one another, and in a future time, closer than you think, there will be no more French, English, or American on earth or in the space, but only individuals and spirits, all children of God, dedicated due to all their faculties to progress and universal regeneration. That is interesting because Kardec here is hinting not only that we do not have nationalities in space, but also when we think about reincarnation, if in this incarnation you are a nationality, in the next one you're going to be a different nationality, in the previous one we were different nationalities. What is your nationality? Just this one that you are now living? So when it comes to the spiritual realm, let's say you today have this nationality being American, but then you return there, you see that for 5 reincarnations in a row, you were Danish. Chances are you will feel more Danish than American. And then what is your nationality? The more we open our mind to that and broaden our understanding to that, the less you will see difference in terms of nationality, ethnicities, everything that actually gets in the way and foments prejudice against each other. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight in this meeting, I salute the dawn of a future union of the diverse Spiritist schools, and I'm glad to count Mr. Peebles among those without bias, whose assistance and goodwill will assure the heartiness of our teachings in the future and its universal dissemination. So here he's also showing us that Mr. Peebles, even though he was an American belonging to the spiritualism group, or he had this desire to know more and to understand. He was seeking the truth. And the more we do that, the more we seek the truth, the more we will be able to put aside all our differences and everything else that can get in the way of, what is really the truth and the universal dissemination, as Kardec is talking about here. So he was foreseeing the dawn of a future union. And especially, I wanted to bring this message, especially for us here in the US, because this is the environment, the spiritual environment we live in. Spiritualism is very well known, is a very big movement here, very well respected. And Spiritism is quite new in this country. And instead of, trying to not come together, we have to do our utmost to come together and to talk to each other and to respect each other, even if we will have a few points that may differ. It doesn't matter. We are all looking for the same thing. And Kardec follows in saying, translate my works. Only the arguments against reincarnation are known in American. When demonstrations in favor of this principle become popular, Spiritism and spiritualism will walk hand in hand and will become, due to their union, the natural philosophy embraced by all. Allan Kardec. So it's interesting because then he says, translate my works. And Blackwell accepts the suggestion of Kardec and start contributing tremendously for the dissemination of the Spiritist codification in the English language, which has traveled from England to the US as well. And even within the spiritualist movement today, we find many spiritualists that do accept reincarnation as a fact. And that is the importance of all this. And finally, I would like to end our presentation showing to you a prayer that Kardec said when he received the communication about his mission, and that is published on the book Posthumous Work, second part. And it's such a beautiful prayer. I wanted to finish this presentation with his prayer when he accepts from the Spirit of Truth the mission of continue dedicating his life to Spiritism. So he goes like this: "O Lord, if you deign to set your eyes on me for the fulfillment of your designs, may your will be done. My life is in your hands. As your servant, I am at your disposal. I acknowledge my weaknesses before such a great endeavor. My goodwill will not fail, but perhaps my strength will give out. Supplement my deficiencies. Give me the physical and mental strength I will need. Sustain me in the difficult moments, and with your aid and the help of your heavenly messengers, I will use every effort to comply with your designs." May we all one day feel the same way as our codificator felt when not only he said this word, but he wrote this word, and that's the reason why we have it, so that it could keep, following us, could be with us for eternity. So we are very grateful to Kardec for all this work. And the news that we have to give to you is that we are, I guess from next week on, we already be having on our website the publication of a new book by the United States Spiritist Federation that is called the Spiritist Review. As we know, we have 12 years of the Spiritist Review that was published by Allan Kardec during his life, and that continues till today. But this one, what is special about this publication from the United States Spiritist Federation? It's we have selected topics and texts from the years 1858 to 1864 that we already have translated. The last 2 years are going to be published next year. Only with American articles. It's a special American edition where Kardec mentioned the Spiritist movement, the spiritualist movement in the U.S. So it's a collection of texts, choice texts that Kardec has published in the 12 years of the Spiritist Review that talks about the United States, which is very important for us here to know and to understand. And there in this book, you will be able to read all about the article that I mentioned to you, the Americans and reincarnation, and why is Spiritism or the Spiritist movement is started here in the U.S. and not any other country. And so I will not spoil the reading to you. So we will be informing you as soon as it is available on our website. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm really here ready for if you have some questions.
Appreciate it. We have several questions, and I wanted to know how much time do you have? About 30 minutes or less?
20 minutes would be great.
Okay, so let's look for 2 or 3 questions. We have received several, and I want to open to all, as you can see in the background. Kirsten mentioned, or she appreciates the talk, and has asked specifically if you had any recent communications. You started earlier talking about it, but if you can bring it up again, what are your knowledge about recent communications of Kardec?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I think before anything else, thanks, Kirsten. But to my knowledge, I think the one of the communications that we had from Kardec that is still considered is right at the beginning of the 1900s. After that, we do not have any more communications that we can, I mean, to my knowledge, okay, that was divulged, that we have from the spirit of Kardec. But like I told you, I said at the beginning, I don't think Kardec is there or just moved away to to another orb or something and just left us behind. The Spiritism is just starting, is the byproduct of his efforts. And so I'm sure he is here very close, following our work, our determination, inspire us with resilience, perseverance. And I'm sure he is communicating as well, but he's not using his name. At least he's not using any of the names that we know as being a name that he had during this incarnation, or even others that we know for sure he was that character. So that's what I know. If somebody else knows something different, please let us know. We would like to learn as well.
Correct. Thank you. So I have, as I said, several questions, and Kristen also asked about Anna Blackwell. You talked to us today. Can you share a little bit about her life and who she was a little bit longer?
I don't know it by heart, okay, but I think she was an American, and she spent much of her time in the UK, and of course not only due to her life here in the US, but also in after Spiritism or the communication of Spiritism travel to Europe, and of course to the UK. She was one of the spiritualist advocates, and very close with the whole spiritualist movements or spiritualist movement of her time. And it was when she started also being in Europe to be even closer to the development of the spiritualist ideas in the form of Spiritism that Kardec put together. And it was more really after this communication from Kardec at her home, in a seance at her home in 1869, that in October, that she started dedicating herself to the translation of the books of Kardec. For many years, we only had the Medium's book, especially the Medium's book and the Spirit's book. That was the one that we used more from her. That was translated from her. And I being involved in translations myself, I'm such a fan of Anne Blackwell, because not only she was going after something that was completely new at her time and not that much understood, but also, her heart was more on the spiritualist, modern spiritualist side. And then she was dedicating and translating things that not necessarily were in tune with what her beliefs were, and even the English-speaking people. So, but I don't remember more about her at this point.
This is a good invitation for all of us, right? To go ahead and understand or learn more about her. While we wait for another question, I just want to, oh, there you go. We have another one. Luis, he posed a couple of questions, and one of them is understand what was the political side to the behavior of the society. And we're talking about specifically about Europe and America. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing, and this is why, I'm inviting all of you to read those articles, because even if I wanted to tell you all about it, and I definitely can say something, and I will say something now. I mean, the beauty and the logic and the way that Kardec wrote, it makes it so much more powerful. You see, the problem that we were facing here in the US at the time were slavery. So the idea of coming with a new philosophy that would say, listen, there is reincarnation, and next incarnation you can be born as a slave, would immediately destroy any of this point. So the spirits have opted not to disclose this information, to come more, and even it's beautiful. And they say that the spirits came and they presented what was essential for the birth of the spiritualist ideas, and that there was only one country that was fit for this to happen at that time, which was the United States of America. because it was the only one that already defended the freedom of thought, and that an idea such as this one would not be destroyed immediately. And it's so amazing because there is even a professor of philosophy and history professor, a French one, that he once I was watching a talk by him, and he was mentioning something that I have never thought about it, when he said that it was such an extraordinary thing that happened, because all this movement of the turning tables, the communications, travel from the US to Europe in a little boat that was called Washington, that first arrived in Holland, and from there they were turning tables already, and they started spreading in Europe. That was the first time in history that something that came from such a, at the time, primitive country, new country, to put it more elegantly, at the time, were dictating fashion or bringing something new that would call the attention of Europeans. It was always the other way around. Everything that they were going to take serious, it had to come from Europe, especially if it was from, an intellectual point of view. That's why the intellectual part of Spiritism was developing in France, because all the intellectual understanding came from there. But let me go back to the question of Luis, and the political aspect. We are talking here not about politics, but the political aspect. There is always this thing that I know it to be this way. The spirits that are communicating to me are not saying anything about reincarnation. So there was this kind of divergency of ideas, but there was a point in all that it was not possible to be that clear at the time. Today, when we look at it, when we read at those articles, we say the spirits were so wise, because they knew what they were doing in terms of starting here, not disclosing reincarnation, developing the body of this knowledge, the intellectual body of this knowledge in a country that ideas of this that pertain to this category would be accepted. So this is what happened at that time, and of course I can only imagine that for a mind like Mr. P translated this article in particular, I was so touched by his presence and everything that he did. I mean, he was really truly a man in search of the truth. And so I guess he wanted to talk to Kardec exactly because of that, because he said, how come? Why do we have to have these differences, right?
Correct. Okay. Thank you. It's very good. And Luis said, great explanation. Thanks. But there's another question here, and we have a few more minutes. So we go maybe this and one more, depending on time. But a number of people really know about the 5 books of codification by Allan Kardec. Can you talk a little bit about the additional work that was published?
Yeah, only by Allan Kardec we have a relation of works that he has written and published that amounts to 32. And of course, most of us, we only know about, less than 20. But it was, even literature, things that he wrote when he were preparing, like, a dictionary, practical instructions about mediumship before he wrote the Medium's book, that he even stopped publishing after he had the Medium's book. So, but we are mentioning all of them because at the end of the day, they were writings of Kardec. So, but at this point, if at least we can have the 5 books of the codification, Spiritism in its simple expression, what is Spiritism, the 12 years of the Spiritist magazine, the Spiritist Review, it's literature enough, and we are talking about 10,000 pages already, about 18 to 10,000, 8 to 10,000 pages, depending on the size of the publication, because the pages of each publication vary. But to be on the safe side, we are talking about 8,000 pages. It is enough for us in this incarnation.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we have time for one last question. And
okay.
I don't know if you can see, Fabian said, what's your opinion that Kardec and his personal message texts remain unknown to the Spiritist movement? And I think this is related to just what you said earlier, Jussara.
Yes, Fabian, I mean, whatever is from Kardec, is from Kardec. It has a historical value, right? I think we always have to be careful in a way, because, not everything that Kardec wrote was for public display. And I think that sometimes, for a historical purpose, I do understand us being so eager to get to know the man more, get to know the Spiritist more, the scholar more. But we should not forget the respect. And there are some publications that were made that maybe he didn't publish for a reason. Other things that are more related to his personal life, like his personal correspondence with his wife and vice versa. So as a researcher, I would say they are so interesting, and it's so good that we can have a clear view of all that. But from a moral, ethical aspect, I would say that we should think about respecting him as well, his privacy, as we would like ours to be respected. And unfortunately, many of his documents were lost, were burned at a certain point. And but yeah, I mean, for those who are in possession of those writings now, it would be nice if they could perhaps not thinking about with the mind of a researcher, but also with the mind of what would Kardec want us to do when in possession of all those informations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jussara. Thanks everyone who posed your questions. This has been a really good time here, right? We live indeed in a era of information, but oftentimes it feels like we live in an era of opinions, right? But in anyways, I just want to say thank you, Jussara. Thank you everyone who watched this live, and those who have been following our weekly talks. Please note our talk next Saturday, which is October 10th at 11 a.m. as usual, Eastern Time. Please don't miss Flavio Zanetti. And Flavio will be speaking about well-being through forgiveness, a Spiritist perspective. I want to say thank you, and wanted to ask Jussara, do you want to do a final prayer before we say goodbye?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
So our prayer today is a prayer of gratitude to our Heavenly Creator, but also our gratitude to, especially today, for Allan Kardec. We know how hard it was for him to fulfill his commitment, to give his life, to dedicate himself to the enlightenment of humanity. And we thank you with all our heart And like you plead on your prayer, we also plead to you that we may have the strength to fulfill our commitments before this great doctrine, that we can do everything that is possible to spread this knowledge so that we can reduce suffering in our world. May we all feel blessed at this moment. May all our homes be blessed. And may we continue in our work, in our pursuit of enlightenment. Thank you, God.
Thank you. Thank you, Jussara. Thank you, everyone. Everybody have a great weekend.